Welcome back to Area DMG. I'm your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth. And for today's episode of Area DMG, we're taking a look at, well, we got a couple requests to do this video. So let's do this video. We're going to talk about the Wii U Virtual Console and the Game Boy Advance games that are on the Wii U Virtual Console. There's about 70 plus games. Nintendo has been really good about getting kind of rare games out there. For example, Golden Sun and Golden Sun The Lost Age are on there. All 4 Mega Man Zero games, all 3 Castlevania games. A really good mix of games are on Virtual Console right now for the Game Boy Advance. They have, unlike some of their other systems, not been slacking on the Virtual Console for the Wii U. Unlike with the Wii, where it was good for a couple about a year and then just kind of died off, the Wii U's actually been very consistent about that. And to be honest, we have to give them credit for that. This was actually kind of a difficult list to make because it was kind of hard to find stuff that wasn't already there. I thought, well, surely they didn't have Polarium. Oh yeah, they have Polarium. What about Advance Wars? Maybe they neglected that. Nope, Advance Wars is on there. What about Final Fantasy Tactics Advance? Nope, that's on there too. In fact, a lot of the Game Boy Advance Final Fantasy games, like Final Fantasy 1 and 2 Dawn of Souls, Final Fantasy 4, Final Fantasy 5, and Final Fantasy 6, I think these are already on Virtual Console for the Wii U in Japan. They're not on our list of 10, because there's a good chance that we'll probably get them, which is odd. I do doubt that we'll get Chain of Memories, which is not on this list. But depending on who you ask, that's either a loss or a gain. To be perfectly honest, I liked Chain of Memories, but I like deck building games, so that one's pretty good. But let's get into this. The top 3 I've set out ahead of time, and the rest of the 7 are kind of in a random order. Let's get into it. The first on our list of the top 10 Game Boy Advance games that are not on the North American Wii U Virtual Console, but should be, is Bomberman Tournament. Now, released by Activision, developed by Hudson Soft, Bomberman Tournament is on here because Bomberman Tournament is actually a really good game. It's got good multiplayer, but the single player mode for Bomberman Tournament is excellent, which is something you don't hear too often about Bomberman games. There were some, like the Bomberman Max Challenger and Bomberman Champion games for the Game Boy Color, or Bomberman 64, all of which had really good single player modes. Bomberman Tournament has a really good single player mode, and it's kind of an RPG, which is excellent. It's definitely worth checking out, and we'll do a video about it at some point, a gaming paraphilia about it at some point. Next up on our list is Astro Boy Omega Factor. Stay away from the one for the DS, it's trash, but the one for the Game Boy Advance is a treasure game, and it's one of the only real anime games that we've got on this list. Now, I was really tempted to attach the Shaman King games to it, or the One Piece ones that are on Game Boy Advance, but then this entire list would be, oh, look at how really good this Shaman King game is. Yeah, I'm going to go with this one because it is literally the best anime game on the Game Boy Advance. It's fantastic. A really great combo system. It feels great. It's a really good game. I'll play it sometime for a gaming paraphilia. It's tough, it's challenging, and it's all about Osamu Tezuka's characters. Astro Boy's in here, the Phoenix is in here, Unico's in here, Blackjack's in here, all of these characters. Kimba the White Lion's in here, all of them. Fantastic. If you buy one anime-inspired game for the Game Boy Advance, go with Astro Boy. Astro Boy Omega Factor is insane. It's really good, and it's from Treasure, who did Guardian Heroes, Gunstar Heroes, and a bunch of other really great games. And it's interesting because this one is actually it's not only just published by Sega, it also won't show up on the system because of the other people attached to it. Sony. It's a Sony licensed game published by Sega on a Nintendo system. Kinda crazy, right? Well, that's not the only crazy one we'll see on this list. But before we go any further, let's mention another game that's not going to be on that list, and that would be Nintendo and Namco's Tales of Phantasia, which is excellent if you're playing the Japanese one, but if you're playing the American one, it is butchered beyond belief. It's censored, there's dialogue missing, there's parts missing. It's just really, really bad. And there's a reason why Nintendo seems fit to kind of bury this one. Similar to, I mean, not anywhere near as, well, okay, Crystallis for the Game Boy Color is kind of a little bit chopped up and such, but they had a good reason for it because they redid part of the script to make it more coherent. Tales of Phantasia, they redid the script to make it worse. I mean, seriously, Tales of Phantasia for the Game Boy Advance is a Sonic Genesis caliber port. I mean, it's not terrible like Sonic Genesis, but it's still terrible. Especially if you're a fan of the game and played it on the Super Nintendo. And that's why it's not on this list. Our next one up on this list, though, is Riviera the Promised Land. Now, technically, this one should be higher up on the list because I really, really love this game. I remember I got a review copy of this game that was actually on a Game Boy Advance test cartridge. And I did the review off of that, made sure to mention it in my review, and then returned that and then went out and got the game myself. I've bought this game multiple times for multiple people, and it's a really great game. I remember back in the day when we did reviews on DMGIs with our old system, this got a 100%, and I stand by that 100%. I remember I sent that over there, and the person who worked on this one, Tom Hewlett, you may know him from Way Forward, sent me an email back and was like, "Are you sure you want to give this game 100%? I'm like, "Yes, I do. It's great." And it's from a company called Sting, who also made Yggdra Union and a bunch of stuff that's out for the Vita and the PSP. There's a version of this for the PSP that's got full voice, and it's okay, but the original one was better balanced. The easiest way to play this one now, though, is, hey, if you have a Vita, go get it from the PlayStation Network store. It's pretty good, and it's worth checking out. It's kind of a weird cross between an adventure game and a tactical RPG, and it's with some harem elements to it. Pretty good game. I liked it. Love the music from it, and I spent so much time in this game. Literally, hundreds and hundreds of hours playing this game. I like it. I think I actually drew artwork of the characters at one point. I don't know where that is. But yeah, Riviera the Promised Land. I would love to see this return. I don't know if Atlas really has the rights to it anymore, but yeah, it's a good game. Now, let's talk about another game that actually, this one might show up. And it's Seema, the Enemy. It's a Natsume tactics game. It's a game from Natsume with tactics, kind of similar to like the Lufia. Well, not really similar to Lufia. It's just its own thing. It's a weird RPG. It's got an honorable mention on here because it's fantastic, but it's not on this list because it does have a few little narrative problems, and I'm not actually done with this one yet. One of these days I'll finish this one and I will get back to you on how awesome it is. Maybe I'll do a long play of it at some point. Good game, but Natsume put it out, so there's a very good chance, like Lufia and all the Harvest Moon games, especially the ones on Game Boy Advance, it'll end up on Virtual Console sooner or later. Because that's the way Natsume rolls. They're so desperate for money, they'll put anything out there, which is fantastic, and I love them for it. Anywho, let's get down to the next game on our list, and that would be Banjo Kazooie Grunty's Revenge. Technically, this is that third Banjo Kazooie this is the third Banjo Kazooie game. Nuts and Bolts doesn't exist, and yeah, let's not talk about any of that. There's Banjo Kazooie, Banjo Tooie, and Banjo Kazooie Grunty's Revenge. It feels like a top-down version of the Banjo Kazooie games. One of the better games that Rare's put out. Unfortunately, this is back. This is weird because it's like this happened when Microsoft owned them, then THQ got a hold of it. So I think Microsoft still has the rights to this one. And it's kind of a shame because I'd like to see this on Virtual Console. I'd also like to see this one on Virtual Console. Banjo Pilot. Also a great game. A weird little Diddy Kong racing type game. Both published by THQ, both licensed by Rare and Microsoft. And like Astro Boy, they probably won't ever show up here because of that. So, let's move on to the next game in our little list of these. Let's move that out of the way. And that would be, weirdly enough, Sonic Advance. Now, you wouldn't think that Sega would drop the ball so badly on their own games. And they have. You won't find Super Monkey Ball Jr. on the GBA Virtual Console that's on the Wii U Virtual Console. And considering the Sonic Advance games are actually pretty decent, I'm very surprised they didn't do that. I mean, there's Sonic Advance, which would erase all those bad memories of Sonic Boom for the Wii U. And then there's Sonic Advance 2, another excellent game. And then Sonic Advance 3, where they really refined it by quite a bit. These games, developed by Dimps, the same people who did Sonic Pocket Adventure for the Neo Geo Pocket Color, are actually worthwhile. They're fun. Some people don't like them as much as normal Sonic games, but that's because they felt that too many powers were added, like that sliding move and such. But yeah, I'm very surprised that Sonic Advance isn't on there. Maybe they'll correct that in the future. Okay. Now let's see what's under door number 6. So far we've got Bomberman Tournament, Astro Boy Omega Factor, Riviera the Promised Land, Banjo Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge, Sonic Advance, and now let's see what you are. Chu Chu Rocket. Another Sega franchise that's been sorely neglected. This is literally the best puzzle game. There is Dr. Mario and Tetris Attack. That's good, but Chu Chu Rocket is amazing. This game for the Game Boy Advance is superior in every way to the Dreamcast original. And you know why? Well, guess what? On the Dreamcast, they had make your own levels, right? And you could upload these via these little rockets to the internet, and you could download them, and you could literally play forever. Now, when the Dreamcast died, sadly, a lot of those would probably be lost to time, except for the fact that Sega was like, hey, let's put the basic Chu Chu Rocket game in here, and all those servers, let's dump all of those games, all those user-generated levels, onto this Game Boy Advance cartridge. And just shove them in there. And I was like, oh, it's amazing. Seriously, if you love Chu Chu Rocket, and you loved it on the Dreamcast, you need the Game Boy Advance one. It is insanely great. There are literally thousands of levels in it. It is fantastic. It's addictive, too. Chu Chu Rocket is one of those where I'm surprised this hasn't come back on cell phones or whatnot. What are you doing, Sega? You're just sitting on money right now. I mean, Chu Chu Rocket. Chu Chu Rocket. Da 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 da. Yeah, look that up sometime. It's kind of crazy. Chu Chu Rocket's awesome. But let's get to the next one on our list, which would be Lunar Legend. I have a soft spot in my heart for Lunar, the Silver Star Story, complete. And, of course, the original Lunar Silver Star Story on the Sega CD. And then Lunar Silver Star Harmony on the PSP. Literally, if you put out Lunar again on like another system, I will probably buy it. Just putting that out there, Game Arts. And who owns the rights to this? Ubisoft? Yeah. Literally, it's great. What I think is kind of amusing about Lunar Legend is we used to do April Fool's jokes on DMGIce.com, and one year our April Fool's jokes were Lunar Silver Star Story on the Game Boy Advance. Literally, that was our April Fool's joke. And then less than a year later on, this was announced and came out. So I was like, really? It reminds me of when we had a joke. We had one of those jokes where I had mock-up carts for The Legend of Zelda and The Legend of Zelda 2 Adventure Link on the Game Boy. And we find out later on through Iwata Asks that the Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons games started as those. I remember we had an April Fool's joke that they were going to delay Pokemon Yellow in the United States to add Game Boy Color features to it. And that happened. Other stuff that we kind of predicted were Final Fantasy VI for the Game Boy Advance. That if you used to read DMG Ice, you should go check it out. Check out the library, check out our older April Fool's jokes, check out our older articles, you'll be very surprised. Lunar Legend, though, has this unfortunate glitch. Let's say that you're almost dead in an area. Save your game, and then reload your save. You will have full health again, making this the easiest version of Lunar Silver Star Story out there. Which is kind of unfortunate, but it's still pretty good. Music's fantastic in it, too. I mean, seriously. If anybody wants to port that over to 3DS, I'll buy it again. I mean, especially if you got the fully voiced boat song and stuff, because Lunar is one of those games I really, really love. Now, let's talk about a game that's not on this list, but should be if this were like a top 12 or whatnot. And that would be Wade Hickston's Counterpunch, which I have played way too much of. Check out the gaming paraphilia videos that I did of this game. It's a fantastic little Punch-Out clone, and it's just as offensive as ever, and it's great. It's one of those where I'm surprised it didn't make it to DSiWare or something on the DS or whatnot. Especially considering it was put out by DSi Games. You'd think that they would want to put this out on DSiWare. Sadly, they did not, and I don't think anybody really owns the rights to this anymore. But Wade Hickston's Counterpunch, pretty good game. Now, let's move on to our top 3 that are here on purpose. Before we get into that, let me mention a game that if you own a Game Boy Advance and you love RPGs, you really, really, really need to track down Phantasy Star Collection. This is Phantasy Star 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the same Game Boy Advance cartridge. Seriously. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All of them. It's actually pretty great. The ports of 2 and 3 are not that accurate, I guess is the best way to put it. And 1 is still kind of clunky to this day. But seriously, if you need Phantasy Star 1, 2, 3, and 4, you need this game. It's worth it. It's worth tracking down. It's weird that it was published by THQ, even though Sega is the one that owns the rights. They could have released this one in the United States themselves, but THQ did it. And I want to thank whoever it was at THQ that decided it was a good idea to spend the money to translate this and bring it over here, because it is excellent. But it's not on this list because it would be kind of cheating. It'd be instantly the first thing on this list. But let's get to these 3. Our final 3. And let's see. This is a bit of an odd choice. And it's kind of the reason I mentioned Phantasy Star Collection. And that would be Sonic Pinball Party. No, seriously. You need this game. If you love pinball, which I do, I really do like Pokemon Pinball, Pokemon Pinball they put out on the Game Boy Advance. But this right here, this pinball game, is my favorite. It has Phantasy Star Online stages, it's got Knights stages, really good Sonic stuff. I mean, there's Burning Rangers stuff in here, Virtua Fighter, Space Channel 5. There's some amazing remixes of the music from those. This is just a huge celebration of all things Sega stuck in a pinball machine game, and it's fantastic. Some really amazing boards, really great graphics and music. I love this game. It's really good. And let's be honest, there's Super Mario Pinball Land up there on the Virtual Console, and that game is garbage. Especially compared to the infinitely superior Sonic Pinball Party. Come on. It's just very clear. This is really good, and you should check it out. I will do a gaming paraphilia where I break down why this game is awesome. I've probably spent maybe 50-60 hours on this game. It did not leave my Game Boy Advance SP for an entire month and a half after I got it. It is such a good pinball game. Seriously, it is a really good pinball game. Now let's get down to number 2. What could number 2 be? Oh, I know. Tactics Ogre, The Night of Lotus. Oh my gosh, if there were ever perfect Game Boy Advance games, that would be this. This is a near perfect RPG. I love this game. The music is fantastic. The gameplay is amazing. This is a worthy successor to Tactics Ogre March of the Black Queen. This is a great game. Track it down, play it any way you can. It is worth it. It's also kind of pricey in some places, so it would really do everyone a favor if Atlas or Enix, I think, who has the rights to Tactics Ogre, I think they do, re-released it on the Virtual Console, because this is a great game and you should check it out. Now, what does that leave for our last one? Well, this last one is a bit of an odd choice, but I spent a lot of time playing this one as well. I bought it on a whim because I was like, well, this is probably going to be rare. And then I know what you're thinking. Is that Ninja 5.0? No, Ninja 5.0, despite being the most expensive Game Boy Advance game, doesn't have the gameplay to back up that price. I'm sorry. It's got a lot of hype from IGN and GameFAQs, and that kind of artificially drove the price of what is a decent side-scroller up in value. But that's not what this last game is. This last one is one that I think I let the battery die on my Game Boy Advance and my Game Boy Micro later on in this game, just because I spent so much time playing it. And I would fall asleep playing it. Seriously, it was good. I loved everything about the systems in it. And it's a weird game because it's not what you would expect. Now, had Mother 3 and Mother 1 and 2 collection been released here, they'd probably be right here. But because they're not, this would be Summon Night Swordcraft Story. The first one. Now, the second one's good too, but the first one had everything I liked about RPGs in it. It was actually really, really good. I love this game, and I think Atlas and Banpresto still have the rights to it. So, they should technically think about maybe getting this one out there, especially considering that Summon Night 6 is coming out for the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation Vita. Swordcraft Story is a spin-off of the Summon Night series, but it's still really good in its own regard. And this is my top 10 games that should be on the Game Boy Advance Virtual Console in North America on the Wii U. And they are, from the top, Bomberman Tournament, Astro Boy, Omega Factor, Riviera, The Promised Land, Banjo Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge, Sonic Advance, Chu Chu Rocket, Lunar Legend, Sonic Pinball Party, Tactics Ogre, The Night of Lotus, and Summon Night Swordcraft Story. What did you think? Are there games that you think should be on here? Or games that you think I should have mentioned, like Grand Theft Auto or Driver? Let me know in the comments below. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until the next video comes out, you are now caught up.